Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back here with you all. Just hearing about how the day has been progressing and the conversations and the incredible dynamic engagement that's been happening with all of you. The leadership that the World Food Prize Foundation has had in making this event possible is truly remarkable. I was just hearing that this really came together in just a matter of a couple months. And so to bring together all of you all, these dynamic speakers, the energy that is here today is just a remarkable one. As we discussed this morning on the panel that I was on, March is Women's History Month, so it's no surprise and it's fitting that we're talking about women in agriculture at such a critical moment in history, both for our global economy as well as the planet. And that's why we're really excited, as I mentioned this morning, for the United States to lead and to build a coalition to declare, hopefully, or present a declaration to the United Nations. 2026 is the International Year of the Woman Farmer. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story as a woman farmer, as a woman in policy. I grew up on my family's farm in California. I ran the farm for several years before I made the leap and turned into a career in public service. In both of these roles, both as a farmer and as a public servant, they have shaped who I am and what I believe and how I approach problem solving. My identity as a woman has been critical in how I do that. Because as a woman in agriculture and as a woman in public service, I'm often the only woman in the room, or one of very few women in the room. I remember early on in my career when I was at my family's farm, going to a reception for the agricultural industry that I was in. I walked into the room earlier in the day, going to the meetings, and I was one of very few women in that room. And as I walked in and as I tried to engage with people, I wasn't met with a warm reception. It very much was wandering the room, feeling alone, feeling very much unseen in that room. I chalked it up to, I'm a newbie, I'm new into this scene, I don't know the people quite yet, they don't know me. I really had trouble breaking into conversations. But then, later that evening, my husband joined me for the cocktail reception. He walked up to me and immediately was flocked by a bunch of people asking him what farm, what company, what operation he was from. Very warm reception. And he, as someone who doesn't work in agriculture, doesn't at that point know a lot about agriculture, certainly pointed to me and said, it's my wife here who is the farmer. She's the farmer. I, as the actual farmer, was ignored. I felt very much invisible in that moment. We might think it's a little bit better in the policy arena. In some ways, it certainly can be, and not always the case, though. In my role as undersecretary at USDA, I had the opportunity to do a lot of incredible travel and meet with incredible people around the nation and around the world. And a while back, I was asked to join the governor of a state to visit an operation, to meet with a producer, to talk about the work that they're doing, building and strengthening a more resilient food system and the way that they're producing in their operation. And when it came time at the end to take a picture, the governor's photographer actually pulled me out of the picture. So the governor, a man, the secretary of ag, a man, and the owner of the operation, a man, were all in the picture together, and I was pulled out of that picture. Unknowing to, certainly the governor had no idea that this was happening, but that is just, I think, an example of where often we make assumptions about women's role in agriculture. But we know that this is changing. We absolutely know this is changing, and everyone here is part of the change that's making that happen. Because we know if we're going to grow and innovate in the future of agriculture, if we're going to meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, if we're going to improve our global economy and the health of our planet, women cannot be invisible. Women must be at the seat of the table because women have always been part of agriculture. They just haven't always been heard or recognized or fully included. So in the time that I have with you today, I want to make a specific plea to all of us, myself included, that we are responsible for changing that. We're responsible for changing and supporting the essential role that women in the food system and women in agriculture play. And I ask that you not do it because we feel like we have to or that it's a good thing to do, but because it is an important thing to do, because I believe very deep down to my core that women uniquely contribute to innovations in the way that business is done and the way that policy is shaped. In my career, for example, I've changed the way that we've run our family's farming operation. Both in cases in my perspective and as my experiences as a woman have shaped the approach that I take to work, often as being, again, sometimes one of the only women in the room, I think about who is being left out of the conversation, who is not there, whose input and wisdom and insight is not being included in this conversation as we're making decisions. I often am in the position to see things just a little bit differently, approach the situation in a different limelight, because I've had to navigate just the industry just a little bit differently to get to where I've come. Because it's when people look past you or through you that you have to figure out creative ways to be seen and heard and to have an impact. So I'm not sure what it is or what it is something about women in agriculture that enables us to see around corners. And that is such a critical point of what we do. And you know, certainly in how we approach conflict, how we approach different challenges. As Paul mentioned, I oversee both the agricultural marketing services as well as the animal plant health inspection services. We are dealing with an animal health outbreak through the highly pathogenic avian influenza and certainly new things that are transpiring yesterday and today and this week as we speak. And how we approach the situation needs all insight, all input. Really, again, we need to be looking around the corner. We need to be seeing what's coming. And women really bring that insight and opportunity. And a lot of this comes to me from women who have been and played a really important part in my life. And it's not always women. It's also, of course, men and fellow farmers in our neighborhood, in our region, that really have made an important role. There's nothing like getting you back on your feet, like the mentorship and the support that people have for each other. On the panel I was on earlier this morning, we talked about women banding together, the sisterhood, and the power that happens when we are lifting up each other. And that is such an important part. Because it wasn't just female farmers that paved the way for me. It was male farmers. It's people who valued my insight and my perspective and who helped get me to where I am today. As someone who grew up in a small farm town, working in Washington, D.C., being in a place where I am at the seat at the table making decisions is something I dreamed of and I actively worked for, and it took a village for me to see this come to fruition. I remember in particular some of the neighbor farmers in my hometown who saw that potential in me. Because of their support, I was able to take the reins of my family's walnut farm, and I was able to change the way we did business. I came back to my family's walnut farm back in 2005, and so very early on in 2008, we suffered like the whole world suffered with the market crash. Walnuts were coming on the market in October of 2008 as the stock market was plummeting. Walnut prices were plummeting. We were in a tailspin in the industry of how to manage and how to navigate this market crash. It took all of us in the industry coming together to really support each other to figure this out. But it took me as a woman really, again, being able to see around the corner, realize that it was really important for us to diversify, really important for us to diversify, to expand, to reach out to others in order for our livelihood to survive on my family's farming operation. I found different pathways, and as a result, we sought and we were able to receive or get financial sustainability. We stayed in business because we took risk and we took different perceived risks that weren't always there and relevant right in front of our face. We survived because we did things differently. Women are really great at this. We're really great at the shift, at the pivot. We're fearless in that way. And I see this in so many micro businesses as I travel the globe and I hear from peers and colleagues who are supporting women micro entrepreneurs, women farmers. There is so much innovation out there, and we can see that coming together with the nimbleness, the courageousness, and approach in farming. And the more support that women in agriculture have and women in agriculture get, the more that we're all going to benefit from this. On the public policy side, women see problems in a different way. I talked about how we're working right now on highly pathogenic avian influenza, so many different ways that we see problems. We talked on our panel this morning about how important it is to take a holistic approach, that there is not one solution to a problem. Oftentimes the problem has come because there have been many different angles coming at it, and so really taking the holistic approach is a really critical thing to do. Last summer, I had the opportunity to meet Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General for the United Nations. She's also a farmer. And so we had a great conversation about her role as a farmer and what she sees on her land and on her ranch and the things that she notices and the things that she shares and the things that she, as a farmer, is teaching her extension agent because she sees things in a holistic picture. She sees things in a whole different light. And I think that is such a really important approach of taking that systematic approach to how we approach policy making as well. It happens on the farm. It's how we approach things on our farm. But it also is something that I take with me every single day in policy making is a systematic approach. There's not one solution, there's many solutions, and the many solutions come from the many people that we actively engage with and listen to as we're listening to the problem. Very often I am in a room where people will present various things to me, various ideas to me, maybe often through talking points or otherwise, and what I do so frequently is I listen between the lines. I listen to what's not being said, who's not there and not saying what's not being said. I listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it so that I can get a true and deep understanding of what is really the crux of the issue. I dig deeper in each and every conversation. I ask questions, and I feel like that is a really strong and important thing that each of us as decision makers and as policymakers need to take with us. So the wider the doors that are open for women, the more of that approach we're going to get around the globe. When I considered the topic of this conversation today, driving the growth and innovation, I realized that innovation that I have found in my career is to find roundabout ways to the same opportunities that my colleagues have made. I'm hardly the first. Yes, I'm the first undersecretary in my area at USDA, but I am hardly the first. Women have always been in agriculture since the beginning of time. We just haven't shown a light on it. We just haven't shown and supported the community of women in agriculture. And today marks an important day with all of us here really shining the light and the opportunity and the importance of women in agriculture, that we as a global community love and support what women bring to farming. We all have an opportunity to seek out talent, to shift, to shine the light on it and to lift it up. And I think that's a lot of what's happening today. And a lot of what I need to, and every single day work to do, is to look for opportunity to shine the light on incredible talent and lift that up so that we are better as a result of that. I'm really thankful for the farmers, for the public servants who saw the potential in me and lifted me up. Many of those are female, not always necessarily the case. Certainly, I've had many mentors in my life from across different backgrounds, whether they're farmers or policymakers, whether they're innovators or researchers, all of the different aspects. But I certainly want to just recognize the women in my life who've made a huge difference. And of course, it starts with my mom, who was who was my first teacher. She's a teacher herself. She was also my first 4-H club leader. It also is my soccer coach, who growing up was my soccer coach, and that's what I saw her as. And she is now an assembly member in the state of California and the majority leader of the state of California Assembly. The California Secretary of Ag, who saw opportunity in me that I didn't always see in myself. She mentored me first as her deputy secretary and then as her undersecretary. And so many family farmers in my farm town who have really taken me under the wing. We must all seek to be mentors for others. We must all look for opportunity to mentor others and also continue to seek mentors ourselves. I don't think any of us are at any point too high in our career where we don't benefit from mentorship ourselves. Seeking out women is important. Seeking out women to mentor, but also seeking out women who haven't always felt like they have the opportunity to speak up, to speak out, to share their wisdom. Spotlight women who have found innovative solutions for some of our most challenging problems. We heard a little bit about that on our panel just before us today. And then, they are really the innovators. They're valuable, and they just need to know that they're welcome. So I want to thank you for including me in your program today. I look forward to our continued work together, sowing the seeds of equity. Thank you.